We are live.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight at our June meeting. I'd like to call to order today's meeting. It is 4:02 p.m. Let's go ahead and start off with roll call. My name is Amber and I'm present. Angela?
Present.
David?
Present.
Sarah?
Present.
Shannon?
Present.
Olivia?
Present.
Craig?
Present.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. If I could please have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. Thank you so much. Can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstains? The ayes have it. Motion approved. Can I also get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstains? The ayes have it. Motion approved. Okay, before we move on to the communication from the public, I do just want to go ahead and read a brief statement. First, we greatly appreciate every single one of you guys being here tonight. Our top priority is to ensure that everyone can participate safely and respectfully in our public process. To support this, we have security present for the protection of all attendees and staff. We ask that all participants remain mindful of our guidelines for civil and orderly meetings. Under our standards, viewers are permitted to participate and speak during public comment. During this time, the board will listen carefully and thoughtfully. Outside of public comment, the audience must remain quiet to allow the board to proceed with public business. If disruptions occurs, individuals may be asked by security to leave in order to maintain a safe and orderly environment. Should the disruptions continue, the board may need to reschedule the meeting to uphold our commitment to everyone's well-being. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for your cooperation and for helping us foster a constructive and secure space for public involvement. With that said, we will move on from communication from the public. This portion of the meeting is set aside for the purpose of allowing an opportunity for individuals to address the board of directors regarding matters on or not on the agenda, but within the board of directors subject matter jurisdiction. The board of directors is not allowed to take action on any item that is not on the agenda, except as authorized by Government Code Section 54954.2. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. The total time allotted for public comment is 45. If you wish to speak, please complete a communication from the public form available at each location and submit it to the executive assistant or on-site meeting coordinator before the meeting. Now, with that said, I'd like to just confirm, do we have any speakers out of Redlands?
No speakers for Redlands.
Thank you so much for confirming. Do we have any speakers out of Santa Clarita?
No speakers out of Santa Clarita.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for confirming. And I believe we have 4 speakers for AVRC. So I'll turn this over to Denise.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is related to LCAP goal number 4 on our email, but this is definitely more of a personal issue for me. My name is Marie Davis, and I have 2 students at Gorman. We've been with this school since 2017. My oldest is set to begin 9th grade in the fall, and my youngest is entering the 7th grade. There are 2 reasons we have chosen to stay with Gorman and not privately homeschool year after year. Reason number 1 is our amazing PLT. She has been by our side year after year through successes and struggles. She holds us accountable and is a wonderful guide who cares deeply about her students. My children love her and trust her. Reason number 2 is the ability to use our student funds to engage with our wonderful community partners. After all, the ability to tailor a learning program specific to specific student needs is the central purpose of charter programs. The reason I'm speaking today is that I have just learned that Gorman has revised their high school program requirements. It is my new understanding that high school students have no choice but to be a part of the A through G graduation track. I am thankful that we have wonderful community partners that are qualified and able to provide students with face-to-face instruction in small class settings. My children have been using community partners for years and will continue to do so for the duration of high school. These community partners, several of which are contracted through McLaren Company, offer classes like English, biology, history, and Spanish. These classes fulfill the A through G requirements at Blue Ridge Academy and several other charter schools in our area, but not Gorman. It is my understanding, based upon information from my PLT and the high school guidance counselor, that Gorman does not currently accept these classes as A through G for credit. This is very sad news for us and several other families who utilize community partners for these standard subjects. My plea here today is that the board assess and reconsider their acceptance of these community partners for Gorman's A through G high school program. Our community partners are happy and ready to submit curriculum and syllabi for approval. May I add emphasis to this statement by reminding everyone here that at our last meeting where the Antelope Valley Resource Center was closed, distraught families were encouraged to lean on our community partners as a replacement for the lost community and face-to-face support our students have received here these last 7 years. Thank you for your time and consideration.
My name is Jamie. I'm a mother of 3. We've homeschooled our children for 4 years, 3 of which have been with Gorman. I knew if I was to homeschool my children that they needed to have in-person enrichment. That's my main reason in choosing Gorman, was the on-campus option. I understood that at the time, we would receive less funds than other charter schools. I understood at the time that that was going to be applied towards budget to be able to afford the AVRC. I even signed this year, accepting $1,000 less than other charters, expecting to be able to use the on-campus at AVRC. At this point, I've lost most opportunity to sign with other charters to have additional funding that I could use for other in-person enrichment. At the time when I made the decision, the financial hit for the lack of funding was worth it, again, because of the AVRC. When we first joined Gorman and my children started the on-campus enrichment classes, I learned very quickly how imperative it was for their education. The impact that the staff, the teachers had on my children is not something I have taken lightly. It was the best part of our homeschool journey. Having people who hold similar values as our own has given me the trust to allow my children to step foot on a campus again, allowing them the space to explore the outside home in a safe way. My girls were in a public school district for 3 months before we switched. The school was locked down. You weren't allowed inside. The teachers were cold, but not at Gorman. The teachers and staff not only care, but they genuinely have love for these students. Countless times I have had to lean on the staff and teachers at Gorman, and they've bent over backwards for myself and my children simply because they want the best for their futures. Out of nowhere, I and many other families, including the staff themselves, hear that the AVRC is closing down. Had any of these parents been made aware in more than just a little shimmy off and maybe a side meeting or whatnot, like Parent Square, there's many ways that we all communicate with each other. And I really don't feel that the board was transparent at all. Unfortunately for me, I didn't even get to be here last week to speak. I can almost guarantee you that if we were given the option as parents, teachers, and staff, we would have done what we could to try to help to step in, try to help figure out deficit issues. Maybe some of us would have even offered to remove some of our funding in order to try to continue the AVRC. But again, we weren't given any options. We weren't told this was going to happen. It was just like a rug ripped up out under our feet. My children have cried over it. They didn't get to say fully goodbyes to their
Good evening. My name is Erin, and I am simply a Gorman parent. We had 24 hours notice that special meeting, and I didn't have time to understand why. I went back and looked over the budget, and with what I heard at that meeting was, we cut back, we cut back, we cut back, we cut back. There was never any talk of growth or any talk of raising revenue. Revenue can come from a lot of places, not just grants and LCAPs. Our resource center can be funded by corporate sponsors, by businesses in our community. If you can imagine the amount of people you had in here last week, the amount of people who could find out how to get to businesses, how to get to corporate sponsors. And I understand it is not just handing over a check and saying, do with it as you please. It could be donating school supplies. It could be donating science supplies. It could be donating different things. But we never heard any of that. And I never saw any of it in the budget. And you didn't even give us time to apply. Castaic School District just told their kids that they cannot provide transportation for next school year. That gave them 60 days to come up with a plan. We had no time to come up with anything. We could get our sports teams sponsored so that they doesn't come out of the funds. And those funds can be used to help with the deficit. We could have so many other things done if we had been given the time to know what was going on. We have resources here. I know you guys live in other communities. The amount of people that were here, we go to church with other people. Our kids play soccer. Our kids do other things. And we could have gone out and sent out a Save Our Resource Center and helped fund this place. Please think about that, because we were not given the chance. And remember what Jesus says in Matthew 7, verse 7 and 8. Ask, and you shall receive. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door will be open unto you. I just gave you an opportunity to open those doors to our children again.
Thank you, Denise. Hello, everyone. Don't worry, I'm not going to yell at you like last week. I was pretty upset last week because I didn't know what was going on. Still don't fully know what's going on, if I'm going to be real. I'm not here to plead for my job, but I am here to ask that you would consider saving a couple of my staff. Each one of them is stellar. I tried to show it as best I could by getting their pictures up for you with how long they'd worked here. I'm not sure if it's intentional, but you should know that over the last 4 years I worked here, it was often said that the AVRC was not as loved or valued as Santa Clarita and Redlands. I'm not sure if you even knew that was the tone that we all got. Unfortunately, with lack of communication, transparency, things that would help us understand how dire the situation was, when those decisions got made seemingly overnight, it made all of us like our worst fears confirmed. And when you have lack of communication, I've seen that in that chaos, conspiracy theories take rise. And I'm not immune to that. It made me reconsider every person that I knew and everything that I knew about Gorman. The deed has been done. The doors are shut. I understand. I get it. And I felt the checkmate when I realized the locks were being changed. That was pretty rough. I've never been in a situation like that. And my emotions definitely got the better of me. I was feeling half protective of all the staff behind me and half in shock that my kids were seeing something like this go down. But there are some staff members that I'm just going to plead, since you have time with the budget. And I just really hope that you guys know, as a board, you don't have to vote things through just because it's on the table. You can ask to pause, to consider, to get more information. I'm nearly begging you to do that. I know we don't maybe give severance packages. I still haven't had any type of just human reaching out, maybe not to me, but to people that were here almost a decade, people that started CIF like Coach. We didn't have anything like that before here. I'm asking that you would consider these specific people. Vanessa, she's here. She was a former board president. Her children graduated through Gorman. If there's a way to offer them another job, to extend a contract, something, we could have helped you guys close up shop in a lot cleaner of a way than it's done. I understand the fear, and that's why you called security, but when you call security on people who already feel like they've been wronged, it just makes them feel like they've been even more wronged. The other person is Amber Tepedino. Her and her husband both lost their full-time jobs. They've been here almost a decade. And then Coach Darla, who started CIF. If anything, and Vanessa's husband lost her job the week before she lost hers. I'm just asking that you would reconsider for those 4 people. I noticed on a graphic that was made that you guys are wanting to offer athletics, ASB, dances. Ironically, those things are the things that we ran. I can give you point people that know how to do that job. I would highly recommend them. And I just ask humbly that you would consider that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to the 4 individuals that spoke tonight over public session. Moving on to comments from board members concerning items not on the agenda. Do we have any comments from board members? Moving on to the consent agenda, can I please get a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstains? The ayes have it. Motion approved. Moving on to the report and communication to the Board of Directors presented by Olivia Duran.
Thank you. It's one of the last board meetings of the year, and this is a time when we honor those employees that have retired. I would like to honor Eileen Mastro. She started with Gorman Learning in 2001 as a teacher. Eileen took on the role of Title I coordinator 4 years ago, and she's made it a point to provide Title I services to all Gorman students who want to participate. We wish you and Maddie the best at this year's Olympic Games, Eileen. Congratulations on your retirement and enjoy your time. The next staff member is the art teacher from Santa Clarita Resource Center, Moira Lendering. She's been with Santa Clarita Resource Center since 2008, and as a very talented art teacher, she's been a true employee to our personalized learning model. On one of our visits while taking our authorizers around Santa Clarita Resource Center, we stopped by and walked into a whimsical art-filled wonderland. Everyone was drawn to the amazing artwork and all the different mediums that were used by students. We were amazed that all the students were working on their own different art projects. We have Apple Awards for them with their names on it and their years of service, and those will be mailed to them. Thank you for your dedication, Eileen and Moira, and your service to the students at Gorman. The next is teachers are currently off contract, or not contract, but they're off for the summer, and they'll return August 1st. The directors and other staff are working on the PDD for August 5th. I'd like to invite all the board members. It's August 5th down at the DoubleTree. So I'll do an official invitation, but you guys are more than welcome to come for the day-long PDD. Graduations took place the last couple weeks. It was a great time to celebrate our students' accomplishments and see all their hard work throughout the years. thank you to the board members that attended and the speeches you gave. Aaron, that was a great speech. Everyone was encouraged by it. Quick update on AB 84. I know while we were getting here to the board meeting, it was actually on the floor for a vote. I don't know if it got pushed back into a suspense file. Some of the amendments, no longer reducing the funding determination by 30%, but instead it's replaced with either just a full 100% or zero. So right now you had the opportunity to get 100% or 70%. Now they're taking that away altogether. So it's not an across the board cut for 30, but it's either if we don't meet their criteria as a charter school, then we can be cut to zero of a funding percent. So it's almost they took something away, but then they gave us something else. It still has language in there about our vendors needing to be credentialed and staff members. I just want to encourage the board and anyone watching and involved to continue to watch and advocate for our charter model. I just wanted to say I would like to bring the org chart and salary schedule changes possibly to the next board meeting. If not, I understand that those would have to wait until next year, which would just cause a little bit of disruption with staff. But just wanted to say, want to do that and then bring the PLT salary schedule, PLT2 salary schedule, which would encompass a higher pay and some of those extra duties to help with the large extra duty stipends bucket that we currently are using now. And then with us, we have Karina Navarro, who's down in Redlands, and Gretchen Benham. They attended the CTE Educating for Career Conference back in March? Back in March. So they want to present on the board of directors asks about those that attend conferences and what they bring back. So I'd like to invite Gretchen and Karina to present.
Okay. Hi, I'm Gretchen Benham. I am the CTE education teacher here at Gorman Learning Charter Network. And I wanted to bring some great news about CTE. CTE is we're growing slowly still. We would love to be growing in leaps and bounds. We're working on it. So we're trying to get everyone to understand what we have to offer. We have 15 pathways available in CTE. So there is a pathway for pretty much anyone. As a couple of the board members have had students in CTE, and I know that they fully support the program, and I know that our administration does too. So thank you so much. You can go to the next slide. I'm going to read this because it's a stressful day. So, and Karina is going down from Redlands too. Karina, can you jump on right now?
Yes, I can.
Beautiful. Okay. So we just decided we're going to read. So exploring the future of career education. For those of you who are not familiar with CTE, which is career technical education, and are maybe a little older like I am, ROP used to be CTE. So if you remember having regional occupation programs, that's what CTE is now. It's for career and technical education, preparing kiddos to have career readiness, some of which, like my pathway, you can get a job right out of high school if you finish the program. So exploring the future of career education. Join us for 3 impactful days exploring the intersection of career technical education with emerging technologies and educational pathways. This yearly conference addresses the critical need for verified skills, demonstrating college and career readiness in today's evolving educational landscape. EFC offers an opportunity for educators, administrators, and career development professionals to engage in thought-provoking sessions, share best practices, and network with colleagues dedicated to improving the future of career education. Go, Karina.
Thank you. Hi. Hi, I'm Karina. I am your CTE Allied Health Career Instructor. I'm also your dual enrollment instructor. And on day 2, we examined all of the highlights of generative AI in CT, work-based learning, certification lab, meaning that your students are able to take high school classes, be certified and be workforce ready, as well as even in some courses gaining career credit as well as looking at other student showcases, observations for students in demonstrations, looking at VR integration, discussing the use of VR in classrooms. We also had a lot of teacher and team strategies, looking at how we are able to investigate effective team building within ourselves and our fellow students, and as well as other teachers. We also looked at some stuff with Perkins and visiting Perkins Technical Office, looking at funding and how we are able to stretch it and implement that type of skills, as well as having being prepared and having that information ready to rock and roll for our classrooms. And we also had the amazing opportunity of meeting one of our keynote speakers, Jose Hernandez, which was one of the first Hispanic astronauts to go into space. And we also talked about visiting and certifying youth space and looking at other dynamic showcases to include that maybe one day we can bring into Gorman. Next slide, please. Gretchen, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. On what was this, Monday morning, we had a great keynote speaker, which if you're interested at all in education and what's going on in education, his name is Mark Perna. He decoded Gen Z's focus on lifestyle over job fulfillment. That's what these guys are looking for. They are looking for a lifestyle. They are not looking to be a specific job, and they won't be. Statistics show us they're not going to stay in one job. I think the anticipated number is they're going to have 15 different careers during their lifestyles. So hugely different from what most of us have had. We got some mind-blowing examples of how different Gen Z's outlook is on education and on CTE, or career technical training. Other sessions that we included that day, or we attended that day, showed us how to address equitable dual enrollment initiatives, which as a team we are working on getting more than just the health. Right now, we only have MOUs, or memorandums of understanding in health. We're working on looking to get our other pathways integrated into that. Hopefully some this coming year. Let's see, we looked at a lot more AI. I don't know about you guys, but as you can see from my hair color and everything else, AI is very foreign to me. You guys might be all up on it, but for me, it was really important to go to the AI sessions. We looked at AI usage among children as young as preschool age. These little 3 and 4-year-olds are using AI, and I'm like, what do I do with it? So it's really important that we all are educated on it. Let's see. We also looked at how to boost our CTSO, which is Career Technical Student Organization programs, by using engaging curriculum, leadership development, and appropriate tools. It is similar in a manner to ASB, but it's more directed to the CTE pathway specifically. And then we had lunch. We watched the California Partnership Academies, which we are not one of, but they are amazing CTE academies. We saw incredible kids standing up in front of 1,000 or more people speaking. I get nervous when I speak in front of 20. So, you know, and these are kids that are doing this, but they're prepared and trained through their CTSOs. We looked at digital classrooms, building community partnerships, and other networking opportunities. Yeah, thank you.
All right. I'll take it from here. Thank you, Gretchen. I'll take it from here. And finally, on day 3, conference did conclude. We did look over educational standards, ensuring that all AI use aligned with learning goals. We also looked at a lot of prompt engineering and how to craft effective prompts for AI and education. We also talked about classroom training and providing educators with the correct skills, as well as looking at how are we providing the correct skills for students and making them or actually enabling students to be workforce ready with AI as well. We talked about project-based learning and integrating AI with hands-on projects. And we also covered, of course, my friend ChatGPT and student use with AI-driven conversational learning with students. We want to encourage and engage. It was an encouraging and engaging conference. We were both excited about attending in the future, and hopefully we can bring some colleagues along. We felt that this was a very enriching conversation to have with you, with everybody present today. And we wanted to thank everybody for allowing us to attend on the behalf of Gorman Charter's CTE program. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, thank you so much. We really had a wonderful time at this conference. It was worth every penny that was spent. And we don't even rent cars, you guys. We do our best to keep the budget down since we're talking about budget. We Ubered to everything because we were too far away from the hotel to walk. Generally, when we go, Olivia knows because she's been before, we just walk to the conferences. We try to get within 2 miles of the conference and we walk everywhere. We were unable to do that this year because of when we planned to go. But we did do it the cheapest and most efficient way we could in trying to keep in line with compliant and purposeful budgeting. So thank you for allowing us to go. Thank you for allowing us to present what we learned. Have a great day.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Karina and Gretchen, for that presentation. Sounds like you guys took away a lot of valuable information. Moving on to item number 11, which is information/discussion/action agenda, review and discussion of budgets for the 2025-2026 fiscal year, presented by Olivia.
Thank you. Up front, I want to remind the Board of Directors and the public that this budget is inaccurate up front. This is the one that was created before the decision was made on May 29th. So I'm presenting this with the intention and knowledge that this will come back June 25th changed. So the numbers you see are not going to be accurate at all. But I did want to review some of the changes that'll remain the same in revenue and request some guidance on a few adjustments to expenditures from the board. Just an example, when you look on for enrollment, we're funded by the prior P2 enrollment, which is the date of April 15th of the past year funded for the current year. So those numbers that you see for GLC wide and separated out for GLC and SBSC are numbers that we reported last April 15th, and that's what we get funded for on our LCFF. If you turn to page 2, this is Gorman Learning Center wide revenues. And then if you go to 5 for GLC, and you'll see the revenues are declining in your federal and other state revenues, and I just wanted to point out why. So the federal is the ESSER funds that we received, we call them COVID funds. Those are no longer being provided. And then also our educator effectiveness funds. We received those in years past, so that's not accounted for in these revenues. So we still have money that needs to be spent on restricted things around that. We use it for PDD, we use it for student teacher clearing their credentials, clearing their admin credential, but that money is not reflected in a revenue here. So when you see that federal revenue, that's some of that. The state revenue has declined. This is from last year. We received Prop 28 money. That money goes to visual and performing arts. That money we don't get every year. So it was received last year, but we're going to spend it this year. So that's why the estimated and the July budget is lower. And you'll see the same in SBSC, which is page 14. So just wanted to explain why those costs were lower and why those revenues were lower. Any questions on that? Okay. So moving on to expenditures, you'll see that staffing, there's an increase in certificated, classified, which then leads itself to benefits. This is all due to, in this budget, there is a staff increase or a staff bump for this year. But after meeting with the finance committee, the board is asking that that all staff, their increases are not going to be given this year. So they're asking me to take that out so that you will see coming back in June, on June 25th, those salaries are going to be lower. So the certificated, the salary, and the benefits will take that bump out to help with the deficit.
On that
And-
note, just to clarify, sorry, Olivia, when you say all staff, that includes admin and.
Yes, yes. And that's, I just want to make sure that that's the board's intention, correct? I don't want to, okay. Vacancies is a huge one. So you're looking through the budget, it's on the side, it says due to vacancies, due to vacancies. On your, I left for you a list of vacancies. The ones that are highlighted yellow, those are ones that I have kept vacant because I was wanting to restructure and combine vacancies with the vacant ones to create what I had seen envisioned in my org chart. The ones that are crossed out, those ones are actually already filled by the time that this budget, so we are in the midst of hiring and filling these vacancies as well. A large portion of these vacancies is for our special ed department, and I want to give a little explanation to that. If you look on page, for GLC, if you look on page 7, under the code 1200, it's certificated pupil support salaries, and you see an increase of 642,000. But if you go to page 9, you're going to see code 5870, contracted services, is a decrease of 741,000.
Is that because you were pulling out of the?
Correct. Correct. So we're pulling out a vendor. So we have the certificated pupil support salaries are higher in the beginning of this budget because we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to hire as many in-house staff as possible. Once we can't hire, then those kids still have to get serviced. So then we start using the vendors, which are a lot more costly. So then you'll see as we go into first and second interim that those numbers are going to flip. So if we hire, we'll take it out of the salaries, but if we end up having to use vendors, then the pupil service pot will get smaller and then the vendor pot will get bigger. And that's the same with SBSC. So any questions on that? We have to make sure that our SPED kids get the services that are in their IEPs. So it's one way of trying to help with the budget and making sure that we have in-house staff. It's a lot cheaper. They build that relationship with the kids, but at the same time, we need to make sure that they're getting their services. So we'll use vendors if needed.
I don't have a question, but can you just repeat back that last 4-digit code with the
5070. So it's contracted services on page 9 for GLC. I'm sorry, 5870, sorry. And then if you look at SBSC, it's going to be those same numbers, 1200 on page 16. For certificated pupil support, we increased it 975,781. But then on page 18, 5870, contracted services, we decreased by 1,273,773. So just when you see those numbers, I wanted to make sure that that was explained and you understood why.
We're not expecting to see those numbers change for Redlands and Santa Clarita because we have the resource centers.
No. This is organization-wide, so all of GLC, all of SBSC. And I would like any questions about SPED or those expenditures. I would like to collaborate with the strategic planning team, the strategic planning committee, to help to develop a finance position that aligns with my vision and the board's goals. So if that be a CBO, a director of finance, but I would like to work with them and to make sure that that aligns going forward. So before the next budget happens, so we can decide and get that rolling for next year. If you'll look on when you see the multiple year, so all the way back to page 3, Gorman Learning Charter Network, the multiple year is going to be skewed because the numbers are going to be off. But I want to preface that the budgets in the past, we had used a percentage to reflect growth. So as you went into the next years, there was an increase or there was a percentage. Being conservative and using the same enrollment numbers as P2, we're aware that enrollment in California is declining, and we want to make sure that multiple year that we are doing our due diligence to make sure that we're not over projecting and seeing a abnormal growth and an abnormal surplus of funds for that. But I wanted to point that out because that is different than in past budgets. And multiple year projections will change once again when the expenditures are adjusted. And then I wanted to ask the board if there were any other questions or discussions on the expenditures that are in this budget, because they will, like I said, this budget is, I'm not bringing this back to get approved. It's going to look different. I'm also, once that's done, I'm going to work with the finance committee to make sure if there's any questions, anything's going forward. So that way, by the time we do bring it back in June on the 26th, that it's all good to go for approval and there's not multiple questions.
Olivia?
Mhm.
Sorry, I have two questions. One, are we able to increase our legal fund?
Yes. So I would increase, right now we have legal funds in GLC due to the possible litigations that are currently in place. I know there are other things happening, so I would like to increase that also in SBSC. So I will bring that back.
And then, so, I mean, I guess, yeah, work with strategic planning or finance, but I'd like to increase the legal fund. And do we have a building fund here?
Not here currently, but if there is a surplus, that would be something that if the board's directing me to, that we can begin to have a finance or a building fund.
Personally, just speaking, I would like to see a budget for building fund for Gorman to purchase a building 2025, 2026, if we're able to recertify and if
So-
someone's going to cover us. So don't know if we can just add that on there.
So a finance or
A
a
building.
building fund.
Building fund, yeah.
Now, a building fund to begin to gather funds, not to purchase a building next year, but eventually, correct?
I mean, yeah, if we could buy a building next year, if we had the finances, that
Well,
would
we
be
have
the
to,
goal.
yeah, first of all, the goal, I understand the goal, but first of all, we'd have to get an authorizer or a district to authorize us, and then we can look in that area to purchase a building.
Correct.
So, okay,
But it helps when you have money in the
right,
bank.
right. Okay, I will put that down as a recommendation from the board. Any other questions or recommendations?
Going back to that on the people support salaries, obviously, we're gonna increase the community partners and we still have all those community partners in place to accommodate all the extra students that we're gonna need since we took away for that. Will we have that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, ooh, that was loud. So, our SPED team, they don't use our community partners, they use other vendors. So they actually use SPED vendors. And like I said, those students we're required as a school to give them certain services. So if they don't have a speech pathologist or if we don't have enough RSP teachers, then they get vendored out. And that's where eventually they either balance out or one is higher than the other, but we sort of go back and forth between those two pots for that need. So I just want to reiterate takeaways so I know what I'm working on the budget and making sure that the board's asking for the staff bump to be taken out. The costs that are currently in there for AVRC, besides the cost to maintain the property until we are out of the lease, a small amount for utilities, upkeep, and security to be present. Anything else on increased legal expenses in both schools, to not have a deficit, and to begin a building fund. Anything I've missed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. All right, moving on to item 11B, which is public hearing, local control accountability plan presented by Jana Walker.
I don't think it's on.
I don't know.
Is it?
Is it? Okay. Hello, Jana Walker. Nice to see you all again. I'm actually going to orient this way because let's run through the basics of what it is that we're doing tonight, and then I'll be facing you guys because that is the purpose of a public hearing. We can go ahead and start with our next slide, just so I can give a brief introduction. So the acronym LCAP, it's someone I remember once said that you almost need a dictionary for all of the acronyms that are in education because we get used to using them.
Can you open the public session?
Do we
one
want
at
to
a
start
time?
that now? Okay, I will go ahead and start our public hearing as of 4:46. Thank you. I do want to, we'll go through this quickly. We'll actually go in reverse order so I can give kind of the parameters of what a public hearing is. So if we can go to the next slide, Denise, thank you. All right, actually the third one in. There it is. All right, so this is what the public hearing is and how it works. So the first point there that I have is that the school, meaning our administrative staff and everybody that contributed to the LCAP, is going to show how we plan to use the money, the public funds that we have in order to accomplish our goals over the next couple of years. Specifically, the LCAP is intended to state how we will help those in our unduplicated pupil group. Those are specifically English learners, foster youth, and low-income students. But the purpose of tonight's public hearing is for parents, teachers, and students and any community members that are present to be able to give additional feedback. So they did participate. Our entire educational partner group was invited to participate in a survey. So we'll go over some of those results tonight. But this final piece in the LCAP process is to make sure that we're giving the board an opportunity to hear public feedback. So the way that this will work is the school, meaning our board, our administration, will listen to the comments. You don't necessarily have to engage back, though you can if there's questions asked. I can do my best to represent the information in the LCAP. There was a lot of us that worked together on it. Olivia may be able to answer some questions. David also worked extensively in regards to the fiscal elements that are provided. So for the public behind me and anybody available at the other two sites that have comments, feedbacks, questions regarding the information in the document, we want to make sure to provide an opportunity for them to provide that. As a board, your role in these comments is to hear them and compare the feedback of the public, including the survey data that I have, with the final product of the LCAP. And to the extent that you see things underrepresented, overrepresented, or things that you'd like to see adjusted, we will have an opportunity to get final feedback before we do our edits. And similar to the budget, we will present the final version to you for actual voting in a couple weeks at that final meeting. So with that, I'm going to orient myself a little bit more this way. I know the mic has to follow me. So am I going to get any feedback if we do this? Okay, I'm going to do that. All right. Okay, so I hope I'll do my best to go this way. I hope I'm not blocking your view from what's behind me, but thank you guys for coming. This is probably the biggest attendance we've had for a local control and accountability plan meeting than I've seen in many moons. I've been doing this for a while. So local control and accountability plan. Local is those impacted by or connected to Gorman. This is our students, our parents and guardians, staff members, and interested members of the community. As a public school, we are run by public funds, which means that one of the requirements from the state of California is that we use those funds in response to the needs of the people that we are serving. So I did make the LCAP public on our website. It was also in our board packet. I apologize that it wasn't up sooner, but it is one of those things every year you're waiting for all these data points to come in so you can provide a clear picture. And so hopefully you've had a chance to review it. Because each school's document is around 70 pages, we are not doing that and reading through all of it tonight, but it is still available for your reference if you'd like to pull it up. Instead, I have a summary behind me with our 4 main goals. To just try to make sure it stays organized, I will present it one goal at a time. During each goal, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, and this is true for our online participants as well, I would just ask that you come up so that you can speak into the mic so that it's represented. If it's a short comment, I will reiterate it just so that it's considered. And then board, if you guys have any questions or any comments related, just let us know and we will do our best to go through this together. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our goals. We're going to skip past this and just do one goal at a time. So the next slide. The thing that the educational partner survey or the satisfaction survey that we put out back in February, this is a synopsis of everyone that participated. So you can see between both schools, we had over 1,500 people participate. I believe the breakdown you can see over there, the 966, that's the number of parents or guardians that submitted a response across both schools. And then our second largest group, which is pretty cool, were our actual students. Students were invited, if they could read, they were invited to participate in it. So we had some elementary students, a lot of middle and high school students participating. The graph on the left there is always fascinating to see. So we do have, our charter schools are located in 2 counties. So you're looking at a district view. It's not just one school. But the geographic representation of our families is what you're looking at here. So you can see that the vast majority of our parents and students and educational partners reside in LA County. Second highest is San Bernardino County. You can also see Kern, Riverside, Orange, and Ventura County kind of going down that way. So we have families all across Southern California. And the rules for a charter school is that we have our authorizing district. So for Gorman Learning Center, that's Gorman Elementary. For San Bernardino, Santa Clarita, that's Lucerne Valley. And we are allowed to serve students in any county adjacent to or touching their borders. So that's how we end up with such a wide array. Also thought it was a little interesting to see that the majority of our participants have only been with Gorman for 1 to 3 years. So if you look at our enrollment from year to year, it looks like we barely move. It looks like maybe we got another 20 kids this year. Really what's happening is a lot of transition. Our model is unique. We don't have a typical setup where people would come necessarily and stay, though many do, and you can see that there's a lot of families that have been with us for several years. But we do have a lot of incoming and outgoing, and I think that is reflective of just the needs of families. Sometimes the independent study model makes more sense for your family, and then other times situations change and it doesn't. And as a result, we see hundreds come in and hundreds go out from year to year, but our overall enrollment has stayed relatively steady. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So our goal 1, it has to do with equipping students at all levels and in all student groups with the tools needed to succeed in college, career, and life. So I know that is very small down there. I included some snippets, feedback from our survey. I'm gonna need to pull it up too so I can see it myself. But the thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was a little interesting, so iReady assessments. So students in here or parents in here, you guys know that your students have to take these iReady assessments. They do them 3 times a year. It's interesting because a lot of times there's fear in independent study models like ours for utilizing these internal assessments. And when I say fear, I say that dramatically. But what I mean is most people find independent study models because they don't want to do things in a traditional way. For whatever reason, they need the flexibility or they want to approach school differently. And the iReady assessment is one of those places where even though our kids really don't like it, what was interesting to see was how much the parents appreciate it. So it's 3 times a year. It's a bit of a headache. Nobody seems to look forward to it. However, the blue and the green diagram there represents over 75% of our parents value or highly value having access to those scores throughout the year. Good to know. With that, I'm going to open it up. You guys can see these actions underneath. So if you have any comments, concerns, questions, or feedback related to any of the categories on the screen. So we've got college and career workshops, career presentations, CASP performance, AP courses, iReady, standards tracking, curriculum development, the MTSS program, that's multi-tiered systems of support. That's when students are struggling either academically or behaviorally. And finally, for our SPED students, the DOR, the District of Rehabilitation Collaboration. That's something that is in our budget as well. So anybody here or online have any comments or questions? Yes. Sure. I think I'm going to have you, I thought I could reiterate, but I think, no.
Okay, for the iReady diagnostic assessment interventions, am I directing the question to you?
Just state the question.
Okay. Sorry, I just don't know where to look. That's why I keep trying to turn. Okay, thank you. We at the RC started proctoring them, and there was like a huge push saying that it was not a good idea to have parents proctor the iReady, even though they're kind of their teachers, and that PLTs really needed the help because proctoring online was not as effective as proctoring in person. And so even though the kiddos that are elementary, they came to our site 1 day a week, the middle school and high school, they came 2 days a week. We devoted 2 weeks, 3 times in the year for that testing. Now, it was a double-edged sword. it was rough because the workshops definitely suffered in terms of like being able to do other activities. And there were some kids that would go ahead and do it at home and so forth. But the other benefit was you had another set of eyes on it. And we had math workshops like Brie Alexander. She did them. Everything was in cohesion with iReady. So she would go in, see where the testing was at, and know exactly where to help with the kids in our math labs. My question is, if it was so important to do it in person, does this make it now not an equitable situation for the kiddos that are up here that will no longer get that 3 times of a year with us? Was that important? How does iReady work in terms of a goal? How does that affect our GLC kids?
Okay, I'm glad I had you do it because it would have come out not that thorough. Okay, so I will answer some of this, and then of course we've got Olivia here and Gretchen is here on a PLT side that might be able to weigh in a little bit as well. It is a good question. So the first thing I would state is that the reason that we started proctoring iReady in the first place, which if you guys have been with Gorman longer than this last year, you would know you used to be able to just have the kids do it, they would do it, and you would move on. Well, there was a time that, and it was very recent history, that the state of California was moving into a direction of a thing that they called verified data. And basically what that meant was if your school was underperforming in something like CASP, which is the state testing, then you could use your verified data, something like iReady, to show that kids were actually making progress. The reason that was important is because CASP testing is only 3rd to 8th graders and 11th graders. So we were missing information, if you will. Well, we were never missing it, but we would have been missing that narrative if we were excluding our kinder through 2nd students, for example, or that gap between 9th and 10th. So the whole reason to proctor iReady at that time was to ensure that it was verified data. So up through even this last year, that was the direction we were moving in because that was the bill we were responding to. To my knowledge, and Olivia can correct me if I'm wrong, that is no longer the push. You want to speak to that?
Correct. I was trying to find the name of the bill, but yes, there was a bill that was passed within the last 6 months that no longer allows us to use verified data.
Right. So in essence, the whole proctoring push was us trying to respond to a legal requirement. And then, as often happens with these bills, they can change quite abruptly, and then it is what it is. We did, just last week, actually, I was, not even last week, it was a few days ago, I was sitting on a call with some of our directors and Parsec Education, who helps analyze some of our data. And they found out that our younger kids were really struggling. Their assessment scores continued to go down instead of progress. And I think it was rebellion against the means in which we were trying to assess them. So to hear you say that it was a challenge for those younger kids especially is not surprising. Their data reflected that. They didn't lose knowledge between the testing windows, but definitely they were struggling. But I think the note there would be, what about those who prefer or do better with in-person experiences? I think the short answer to that, and again, I can defer to Olivia, but virtual proctoring is the way CASP is proctored, so that tends to be the mode in which it occurs. But as long as the PLT is able to observe, are we able to do in-person proctoring? So a personalized learning teacher could do that for students that are not doing well with that virtual environment. Any other feedback? And I don't mean to exclude online. Do we have anybody in person at the other 2 sites, as far as we know?
That's a no for Redlands.
Okay, no for Redlands. How are we doing in Santa Clarita?
That's also a no for Santa Clarita.
Okay, so if you two who are listening have any feedback, please feel free to interject, but I will continue to direct my attention this way. Okay, so looking at our actions, are there, oh yeah, absolutely. Do you want to, okay. Absolutely. So first of all, kudos to you because that is accurate. So what you guys couldn't hear online, and then I can reiterate it here. In general, last year there was a study that conducted that showed that yes, students who were participating in the Gorman Virtual Academy and or the resource centers and getting those supplemental supports did outperform statistically the students who did not have those supports. I think that in general, so Bree, to your question though, was what are the Right. Okay. So absolutely. Okay. So I think in general, and we're going to get on goal 4 when we talk about it, we are going to talk a little more about educational partners, which is where this would likely have to be addressed. But to acknowledge that and state it even for because I should say that too. This public hearing is referencing both schools. So the San Bernardino Santa Clarita School, which encompasses both Redlands and the Santa Clarita areas and everything in between and beyond. That includes that for them as well. So those in-person learning activities, and to your point, those statistics, it is relevant for the other 2 sites. That students tend to do better there. Any other comments or questions regarding goal 1 in here? All right. Some of these things too are things that all public schools have to do, like making sure that kids are being educated. So there's not much to say other than keep doing it, and it's important. So we'll go with that. All right. I'm going to move on from goal 1, but even though we move forward, if something comes up, you want to go back, we can do that as well. Goal 2 has to do with enhancing engagement and fostering a positive climate and informed decisions through communication forums, personalized support, MTSS, which again is our multi-tiered systems of support, and data-driven strategies. I wanted to, I highlighted 2 things that had been new for this last year's LCAP. So our plan, we're in year 2. We're talking about what will happen in year 2, and then there'll be a year 3, and then we revise the whole thing if needed. All of these items we can discuss. There's SEL, that's social and emotional learning training for instructional staff. There's the Gorman newsletter, GLCN Cares, which is a socio-emotional resource that's available online, educational partner feedback cycle, data analysis, technical support, parent seminars, website development, and the digital library. The reason that I bolded the Gorman newsletter and parent seminars is because those are 2 things that were new as of this LCAP cycle. So one data point that you have there on the left has to do with staff in general valuing the newsletter. So you can see that was over 75% really valued that monthly update and getting the report on that. The black bar there would be either not applicable or in this case, it was people who didn't know we had the newsletter. So that happens no matter what resource you have. There's always somebody that's like, I didn't know we had that. Over there on the right, even though you are seeing a big black bar for the parent seminars, this one's actually a huge celebration of success. These were started 2 LCAP cycles ago and initially were quite small. Most people hadn't heard of them, but through consistent efforts of staff and PLTs encouraging participation in these, this has grown quite significantly. So now we can say that over half of the families that participated in the survey have attended and benefited from those parent seminars. So this is a big growth point and something we're moving in the right direction. But I will go ahead and open it up now for feedback regarding engagement. Denise, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, okay, we'll get to this one in a minute. So let's go back 1, and then I have a question for our participants based on that next slide. Any feedback regarding the data-driven decision-making aspect? Okay. I know we don't have anybody online adding to it, but let's go ahead and go to the next one. Maybe I can form this into a question. Okay, so this one was interesting to me because even though by and large we're still scoring quite positively, this was a year that we saw that brown band grow. So just so everybody's clear of what you're looking at, blue would be the number or the percentage of people who strongly agreed with the statement. Green is that they agreed with the statement. Light brown, they disagreed, and the dark brown, they strongly disagreed. So this one's interesting because we definitely encourage parent participation in the board and advisory council and other things. But for whatever reason this year, and again, this survey went out back in February, we saw an increase of the number of parents who were expressing dissatisfaction. So again, overall positive, and don't want to like overly inflate the disagreement with that statement. But my question would be to say, how do you guys think we could help parents get more involved? Just a quick context. I know in the past, because our parents are independent study parents and already taking on the bulk of education when it comes to instruction, asking for more, saying, can you be on the board or can you be on advisory council? It feels like another thing on top of an already very full plate. But even still, it's really important for our families to be engaged and have access in those decision-making processes. So any ideas, thoughts, comments? Yes. But are you willing to speak in? I understand. It's mostly, we tend to have a couple hundred people watching us online, but it gets everybody involved. Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
So be specific. You guys, when you're having these meetings, let us know. Honest to God, I thought a board meeting was, let's see if we need to buy more school uniforms or cheer outfits, or do we need soccer balls? Or are we going to pay? None of us knew you guys had the power to do what you did. And we tried to give a voice. You ignored us. You guys literally stared in the air, fiddled with your papers. You did not pay. You guys had a made decision and you did not let us be involved. You did not give us notice saying, hey, we're in trouble, we're struggling. One parent said, we're in trouble, we're struggling. How can you help? Do you have any idea? We asked, what have you done to prevent this? We got deer. We got nothing. We might have gotten shut down. You might have given us really awesome reasons of why this was happening. Got nothing. So just posting that, hey, we're going to all think we're voting on soccer balls. But if you come to us and you say, hey, we're in trouble, idea, come together, that gives us a place to start. But we're not giving that. You were not fair. It was unjust. We're a Gorman family. I'm a mom, grandma, and a past, present, and future Gorman students. And we were dedicated Gorman. Right now, my girls are getting granddaughters. Right now I'm staying with Gorman because left us a position. The schools are filled, the charters are filled, zone exceptions, got nothing. My girls are done. My girls who have loved Gorman, crushed them. And it didn't do like that. Voted like that. You didn't care what we had to say. So if you're going to have a meeting, don't just send a little note on Parent Square. Having a meeting. Send out flyers. Let us know that this is imperative. Let us be not allow it. And at this point, I'm still a Gorman grandma. I don't know what's going to happen. My girl.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So I'll try, I hope that's fine. I noticed last week that when there's things like applause, it's not picked up in the mic. So that awkward silence was actually applause. Thank you for sharing that. And I think to the heart of what you're saying and to the educational partner feedback cycle, which is one of the points there, there's ways to be transparent with meetings that check boxes, like making sure something's on a website, for example. But to your point, not having it broadcasted out makes it very challenging for people who would want to be involved to be involved. So for our administration and for the board, when we hear feedback like that, and that's something that's a free task for us, is to be louder about our meetings and when those things happen, that's something that we could add into the LCAP as part of goal 2 that says we value that aspect. And it's something that doesn't cost us to do it, but it's something that we could absolutely put in there to make sure that in the future, those who want to be part of conversations are given the opportunity to do so. Any other?
Hey, Jana.
Yes.
This is Amanda Mink from Santa Clarita Resource Center.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi. I was wondering, are we able to or allowed to post board agendas on Parent Square?
Yes. So ultimately, all public agendas and any materials presented in a public meeting like this one are available upon request to anyone. They can ask for them. The means in which we get the word out is typically up to administration. I know we've had a lot of transition in our administrative makeup in terms of like, for example, Olivia has been, Denise is transitioning to another role. So there's been challenges sometimes with having an executive assistant, but basically the shortest answer, Amanda, is yes, we are able to put those things on Parent Square, but in this particular season, it would be a matter of clarifying whose role it would be, how those things are getting done to ensure that it is happening.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I was just gonna say, if you guys need me to, I can also post on Parent Square if that is helpful. I don't know, just, speaking to,
Yes,
what the
and
parents have to say. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so Amanda, I think that's absolutely helpful. I know, so I can speak from the advisory council perspective. We tried to get that up and running this year, and Olivia and I have had some conversations around how to make the advisory council a bit richer to ensure that we're bringing, because, I know what it's like if you see an agenda, for example, and it's something like we're going to get soccer balls, or it's something like, are we compliant with this? Nobody really feels like having a conversation around that, because it kind of feels like, well, you have to do what you have to do. But if we can agendize things that are more robust, that maybe do have varying viewpoints around them, we could probably get more involvement with that as well. Any public meeting is public knowledge. So it is, if it's, yeah, there's no parameters around that. It's as long as it's compliant with Brown Act, which is the 24-hour for special and 72 for regular meetings. Oh, sure. I'm seeing some hands, so we'll go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. So I believe you're speaking about the May 29th meeting that just occurred. And so to reiterate the question, it was asking what the parameters are for disclosing meetings to the public when it's a special or an emergency meeting, and specifically what were the means of posting for the last board meeting. So Olivia can help address this as well, but to my knowledge, the requirements by law is that the agenda is publicly available in a visible space. So I believe that the agenda was posted on the door of each satellite location and the main location. So that would have been the office door here. And then for Santa Clarita and Redlands, it would have been their campuses as well. So that, technically speaking, it was publicly available and it was on the website. The missing element in that particular case was a public announcement, which is not required by law. But what I'm hearing is that the request is that we do that and make it more evident so that people can engage. It is required by law, and it was on the website, but what I'm talking about, it was, yeah. The Gorman website, if you go to the board agenda tab, I'm sorry, the board meeting schedule tab, it was posted, but it hadn't been on there prior to that date because it was an out of the ordinary meeting. It was a special meeting. Correct. It does, yeah. It does, but it was within the agenda. So I think that what I'm hearing from you guys tonight is that rather than just stating there's a board meeting, that the details of that meeting are more overtly highlighted so that the average person that maybe isn't knowing to look there would be aware of what is coming or what is going to be discussed. Right. I see. Let me go over here first, Bree, and then I'll get you. Go ahead. Yes. Right. Right. There's a couple of things that I will state, and again, just in terms of information sharing, it's really, really helpful to be aware of, I learned this from being on the board. I started with Gorman as a board member. I had no idea anything about board agendas or any of that prior to that experience. So now because of it, I do look and I do pay attention to those things, and I understand exactly what you're saying. You don't know to look there. You wouldn't imagine to do it unless you had context for doing so. So I think as we move forward, the transparency is it is technically there, right? But what I hear is the desire to have it more overtly expressed so that people know. In terms of agenda items or giving feedback or any of those things, that is another thing. Our bylaws, our policies, all of those things speak to how Gorman does it. And ultimately, all of those things are the way they are. They've kind of evolved over several years, but a lot of times it takes a situation that kind of surprises people to go back and relook at some of those things. So I think the big thing would be, and since we have a platform with so many of you here, would be to say that if you start to notice that, hey, we could spell out this policy better, you can give that feedback to administration. You can be on the advisory councils or be on the board and be able to have that opportunity to say like, okay, this is where this one fell short, or we want to expand it in this way. That's how the public process is intended to work. But I think, yeah, I hope that slightly addresses it, but I know there's a lot more to that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I do want to get to yours. I saw Bree, so I'll let her come up.
Yes. So previously, our procedure for notifying us of board meetings was much different. We also used to have our RC director that sat here, our regional director sat here and took meeting minutes, and we were a part of a email thread that you could request to be a part of, and you would receive a breakdown of the meeting minutes. That is no longer available to us as of this year. And we are not notified in the same processes that we were notified before. So my understanding, in addition, we as a whole at GLCN or GLC, we used to receive Santa Clarita, San Bernardino, and AVRC. There is a particular person that would get an email to post, right, and to share. That was not done with this last emergency meeting, and that person is still on staff. That person was still a 12-month employee, and that was not utilized. So that, for us, explains why there is a brown section that is growing, because there is a lack of transparency and common courtesy. We are thinking of this, while it is a business, it is not a for-profit business. It is here to educate and be a part of a community. When you are making unilateral decisions without the community's input, it is going to continue to grow.
Did I get to you guys over here? And then I saw, and if you guys, it'll take me a while to point you out. So if you do want to just come up and be close to the mic so I can hand it over, that's great. And you can come up.
I would just like to give a suggestion in terms of the meetings. This is something that a lot of families shared. It was encouraged, especially last week when we were here, to be at the board meetings. And a lot of families had told me that 4 o'clock is early for them. I know some travel a great distance to get here, but there are a lot of families that are still at work. So maybe considering that as we encourage families to attend the board meetings, if it was more convenient for them to come because it's after their work hours, that might be helpful to families.
Thank you. Yeah. So unfortunately, and I'm sure the board members would agree, sometimes you wish you could fast forward past some of the things because it can be awfully dry. And I think that, but it's not, and I don't mean that as a criticism, I mean sitting in your seat, it can be very dry sometimes when you're hearing the same things over and over again. But I think to that point, that's why the board agenda does have public comment at the beginning, so that people don't have to sit through the rest of it if it is not of interest or whatever. But those closed sessions, no one ever knows how long they're going to go. Sometimes they're short and sometimes they're extensive. Right. Yeah. And I will say to that, and I see a comment here too, board minutes are also part of that public process. So I know what you're referencing is that was a more detailed account, but the board minutes are available. Every board meeting, they have to approve the previous board minutes. So, and the board packets, when they do come out, you'll be able to see the minutes and reflected there, but I do hear what it is that you're saying. I see a comment here. Yeah.
This relates to Miss Alexander, sorry. This relates to Miss Alexander's comment a little bit about, since from what I've heard about meetings is that throughout all the meetings in the past semester or year or however you count it, they haven't talked about the closure of the AVRC before then. So I'm wondering when that was discussed and if those meetings are public or if we can if there's a place where we can find out information about that on a website or something.
Okay, so thank you for your question. To my knowledge, the first meeting that it was discussed at was the May 29th meeting in that capacity. I do believe I can share with you in general that a lot of times the board does have a finance committee, and so there would have been board members that had the opportunity to dig in and do that more, but the full board would have become aware of the discussion at the time that it was agendized, and they would have seen it then as well. Olivia, did you want to add anything to that?
The beginning discussions began before I was even here, when it came to the cost of AVRC. Are we able to renew the lease? Some of that stuff needed to be discussed in closed session, but some of it, you would come out and you would know, but there was multiple discussions around the concern of AVRC.
Yeah, so that again, it's one of those things that would have almost come up. Lease discussions are a closed session item. So the discussions around the expense of it would have likely also, to some extent, happened in closed session. So there's some of it that's difficult that way because it can't all be public. But that is the kind of uniqueness of it, because you're talking about both the program model and the financial impact and staffing. And so some of those things do have to be kept private. Some of those things, like the finances and the operations, are public. So there's, that's a tension kind of that has to get worked out. What I'm hearing is that it had been discussed off and on, but not agendized specifically. So it would have come up in other conversations, but not in such a way that it would have been overt, as you were asking about that. Jem?
Another thing that I'd like to suggest for the future is, I know in this community, if you had parent seminars or college and career or any types of things on this campus or in this area, that getting to know staff, everyone that's here, to come out during those times. I know a lot of families expressed they would just like to get to know you. Those relationships are the relationships that had made the difference at AVRC. And I still wish the best for all of our families at Gorman and the students. So I feel like in the future, just to encourage to build those relationships by coming out to those things that you have planned in the LCAP, because the families that really want to get to know you on a different level.
Coach? Before the meeting. So the request there, Brown Act requires that the agenda itself be available 72 hours before. Just to clarify for anybody listening, you're saying it would be helpful to have access to the full packet, not just the agenda, but the packet earlier for opportunity to fully review. Yeah, so I'll just make sure that that has been stated as well. Yes. So again, for people on, oh, yes.
I would caution that if it's related to board issues or board responses, that's not necessarily under the purview of the LCAP. And so certainly want you to respond on the LCAP issues, but don't want you to feel like you need to respond as to relation to the board.
Okay, so then to reiterate for anybody online, the comment that was just made had to do with better understanding of deficits when we are in one and processes to address deficits. Like what has been done as decisions are being made, that just a desire to have more of an understanding of the financials. So thank you for your comment. Again, just to summarize then, the requests as far as it pertains to the LCAP is transparency around agendas, a louder way of alerting the public to meetings. And when it comes to things like the budget, having clear conversations around it that are accessible to families to better understand our financials, the situations that we're in. Okay. Thank you guys. Yes? Yeah.
I just wanted to say that when I did answer this question, I answered it in terms first and foremost of thinking of my PLT. And I want to give props to the PLTs because I think of them as educational partners. And my PLTs over the years, they always made me feel super, super involved. And so it's the strangest, unique layer to the school because you have this amazing in with a certificated teacher and they're helping you shape your kids' experience, their curriculum, all of those things. So you feel very partnered in it. And then it is sometimes hard to understand how you're connected to the bigger circles above you, if that makes any sense what I'm trying to say. So that interpersonal thing is strong. And then the resource center is pretty strong because the families that you get there, that front desk is a catch-all. And so you get this like feedback on this kind of stuff where the parents, even if they're not going to the board, because they got to the front desk and could express frustration or excitement, we had a constant influx of feedback. And I know Amanda Mink could attest to that, George can too. And so I think the disconnect might be in how unique our school is set up, that we're one-on-one with teachers, and then we have these RCs, and then here is admin and board, where at a regular brick and mortar, you're coming in and you're seeing admin, you're dealing with the principal, it's just a different setup. Even the open house nights, all of that, it's a little bit more unified. And so I would just say, I don't think that we're failing across the board, no pun intended, on this. I'm just, I think that it will take that extra oomph for people up here to connect down here, because it's a lot easier. Once you connect to your PLT, you feel like you're there, you're in. So
I will use that as a good point to transition. Our survey data did show that our families have a high level of satisfaction with their personalized learning teachers, which is really awesome. And also that they scored very highly, like over 95% of them stated that when they do express concerns to their teachers, they definitely feel heard and supported. So that's a very positive thing for us to celebrate as well. We can go ahead and move on to goal 3. This was to provide a personalized learning model of education to all students. So this one, again, has a lot of things in there that are not unique to Gorman, but the way that we do approach them is unique to Gorman. The phrase UP on there that you see is for unduplicated pupils. Again, that would be English learners, it would be foster youth students and students that are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So that's who we're referencing when we talk about resources for unduplicated pupils. As you guys are looking through this list, Denise, can you advance to the next slide? I don't know if I had any data points to share on this. Oh, no, I did not. Okay, we can go back one slide. I'll go ahead and open it up if there's any feedback related to these action items that are on the screen. And if anyone needs me to read them off, I can. I know the text might be kind of small. Give you a second to look at them. Yes, I can. Okay, so we have curriculum review and effectiveness. We have direct shipping, the personalized learning teachers themselves, SPED teachers and staff, instructional and student support staff, curriculum and materials, software subscriptions and licenses, mental health support. The 3 items for unduplicated pupils are supplemental curriculum, online resources, and direct assistance for unduplicated pupils, devices and internet, assessment, professional development. This is typically for teachers and how to effectively serve unduplicated pupils, professional development in general, and finally targeted assistance. Any feedback on these items? Yes. Okay, so the question has to do with mental health supports for students who are not in an in-person, do not have access to the in-person workshops anymore. So I do know that we have mental health support resources available in general, that those things are there. To my knowledge, there is also, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but I know our special education students have ERMS, ERHMS, ERMS counseling, and these are counselors that Gorman is able to connect students with, and it's primarily for special education students, but it is also available to gen ed students. And then I also believe, do we still have a socio-emotional curriculum available? I know at one time we had Hey Kiddo, but not necessarily this time, but I think they may still be a vendor of ours. So to that point, that might be one of those things that we include in the LCAP of just encouraging and ensuring that our teachers are aware of social emotional supports so that they can make sure that the students have access to those things that way. Thank you. Any other feedback for goal 3? It is on GLCN Cares as well. Okay. Yeah. Any other feedback on goal 3? And if not, we have one final goal to discuss. Then we'll close out our public hearing. Special education question for in-person services.
So right now they are doing virtual. They asked them to do remote just because we don't have staff on campus. So there's not someone to let them in and out, but they will still be doing everything remote.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for 3? Yes. Thank you. So to reiterate the comment, it was expressing concern that virtual services for special education students is not necessarily the most effective for all special education students, though it may work for some. But did I accurately summarize your feedback? Okay, thank you. Yes.
Again, Jana, I caution you, you don't have to try to assume the role of the whole organization in responding to every question, but getting the information in order to edit our LCAP.
Sure. I also, I may not be doing the best job, but I'm also trying to reiterate it for people who are participating virtually because I know they can't hear the direct feedback. So I'll try to be careful with that. And I did see a hand over here. Yes. And so the question there was, would there be potential for in-person services for SPED students? And so to keep it focused on giving feedback for the LCAP, I would note that there's a request for access to in-person services for our special education students, that is something of value and important. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our final goal, goal 4. This one is our LCAP focus goal, and it has to do with providing in-person services to students. It says ensure equitable access to academic and social emotional support for all students by optimizing in-person learning opportunities. So again, because these 2 LCAPs, there's one for San Bernardino, Santa Clarita, which is still operating the Redlands Resource Center and Santa Clarita Resource Center, and then also for the AV. The LCAP that is currently available, similar to the budget, is reflective of what had been true at the time of the writing of the LCAP. So with recent changes that will eventually note in the LCAP as well as things have been adjusted or not spent as they were intended, like when the LCAP started, things change and the LCAP will reflect those changes as well. I can't recall, Denise, can you go to the next slide? I may have data points to respond to here. One of the things that it kind of ties all of these in-person experiences together are the educational units. These are the funds that Gorman utilizes to customize students' education, first with curriculum and then with additional services. So the graphic that I included here, we'd asked families what is their biggest challenge when it comes to using their educational units. Nearly half stated that there are no challenges. So that's the 48% there. The light brown sector shows that about 23% of those who participated in the survey are stating that there's a lack of available funds. 19% stated that there's a lack of options in their area. We also had a handful, I know the percentages aren't available. I can get those out if needed, but the other things that were of note were restrictions on funds. There's certain things that we can't legally utilize school funding for, so some families were expressing frustration with that. Also, not necessarily having easy access to the educational unit balance. A handful of families, I wouldn't say a lot, but a handful of families were expressing that it is difficult because you have to go through the personalized learning teacher to find out how many funds are left available on your account. Ordering deadlines, some stated it wasn't easy to use. And my favorite, that very bottom option, it happens every time. That I said it nicely as lack of clarity, but there was at least 5 families that didn't know what they were, what educational units were. So that does happen, I guess, no matter what. There's always going to be some that feel like they don't know, didn't know they had access to those things. So those are the general feedback. What I would open it up to here for additional comments would be in your experiences utilizing educational units, what feedback would you have regarding the LCAP for optimizing those in-person learning experiences using those funds? So to summarize the feedback, it's that there are challenges around finding out what those balances are. And it sounds like not necessarily all teachers don't necessarily know how to share that information with families. And so maybe even addressing that small sliver, but it's still real for certain people didn't know. For those of you familiar with our network, we do have like at a glance documents that help explain. And I do believe we have one for educational units, but perhaps the feedback for the LCAP would be making sure that that personalized learning teachers are updated on the best ways to access balances for families and perhaps, providing that information more regularly and opportunities for services as well, including field trips. Right. That makes sense. Yes. That is a great question. It's actually often a misconception of where those funds are or what they are. I know I won't explain it very well, but Olivia, are you able to explain where the educational funds aren't necessarily sitting in their own account? So can you explain how we utilize them?
So they're student EUs, educational units, and we budget for them at a percentage, right? So we have 2,000 students, we budget a certain amount, not all the students use it. And it doesn't roll over into the next year. It's actually in the general fund population, general fund pot. So we have a majority of our students that don't use it. So by the time we get to first, second interim, we're cutting those expenditures and it's helping to alleviate some of that deficit.
some of the deficit.
Yeah.
So again, the feedback that, oh, yes, go ahead.
Olivia, I'll caution you, it's not a question and answer session. It is to gather information towards our LCAP. So,
If you guys email me, then I can answer you there.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so so your feedback is as a student, I assume, would be that from year to year, there's some fluctuation in what is available and how the funds can be used. And sometimes as a student, you're not always aware of what those changes are until you go to use the funds. So some sort of maybe an overview each year would be helpful to know what major changes have occurred on that list, for example, or for funds, and give an update to families that way. Is that a fair reflection? Okay. Any other feedback regarding this goal? So to summarize that feedback, if I heard you correctly, you were saying that that having if you're ordering something from the warehouse, perhaps the costs need to also reflect shipping costs, so that you're more aware. That's kind of the first part. Oh, okay. Okay, so the challenge that you were experiencing was the not being able to anticipate shipping costs because the timeline in that particular season. Okay, so making sure that deadline days are very clear, and then in those situations where there's lots of pieces coming together, making sure that it's as clear as possible so that families can plan accordingly. Do you have a comment as well?
I have a comment. I'm a concerned taxpayer, and I don't know a lot about this school, but from what I understand, it's homeschooling with in-person, the option of in-person, like for a couple days a week. And I heard that the resource center is closing. And so it seems like what we have here is a burger stand that's just selling condiments. And it seems like a failure of the school.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or feedback regarding goal 4? Oh, yes.
So I'd like to make a quick comment. I've been a parent for three Gorman kids that have graduated through the school. I think it's unfortunate what's happening with the resource center, but I know that to be part of a board, from what I believe, it's not a paid position. Sometimes you have kids in school. So I want to thank you guys and commend you guys for the time that you guys have spent doing this. I know that this decision was probably not an easy decision for you guys, considering. But I just like to say, like, I know you guys have a lot of grievances and stuff. And maybe I was just blessed by having Gretchen Benham as my PLT. But a lot of the things that you guys have grievances on are things that PLT's covered, expenses, things that were, things that you were able to do to cover things and all that stuff. Thank you for being a blessing. From what I'm hearing, a lot of people didn't have what we had with you. So thank you for that, because you helped us. You really took care of us. All the money that was assigned to the kids was spent, for a lot of different things, and it was great. So I just want to come up here and just say thank you to all of you, because I know it's a hard decision, and I just commend you guys for what you guys are doing. And I understand also that with the Brown Act, when you guys are being addressed from over there, that you can't speak. So people think that you guys are just sitting there quiet when you're actually just doing what the Brown Act says to do. So thank you guys for what you guys are doing. I appreciate you.
Thank you for that, sir. We appreciate you very much so.
Okay, is there any other final comments? And then we'll probably take this last comment and then we'll close out our public hearing.
Okay, so I just have a couple suggestions. And just to respond to you, sir, I agree. I'm sure this is not an easy job. And I don't think that any of us are saying what happened. If it was unpreventable, it would have been fine. I think it was how it was done that all of us are very hurt by. So I would like to suggest that now that the AV Resource Center is closed, that you put out a new survey for the students who will be staying. And so then you can get current reflective answers of all of these questions that you have put. And then maybe you can have some ideas on how to cater students that don't have a resource center to go to. So that could be helpful. I am suggesting, so my husband actually works, or I don't know if he works for Gorman or worked. He worked as a sped para with you guys. He got his termination notice, but he couldn't be here today because he's still at the warehouse working. So call him an employee or not, I don't know. But I have seen that man struggle online during distant learning, trying to get students to focus so hard. He would be in his office and the parents are screaming at them because they won't sit still to focus. So if there is any way that you guys can offer in person, I understand that he's terminated. It's not even for him to get his job back. At this point, I don't even know that he would want to, because it doesn't seem like there's integrity. However, for the students' sake, I think it's very imperative that they have some in-person options. So that is just a huge suggestion. And then the last thing would be that now that the resource center is closed, I think most parents were okay with getting less money than most charter schools because we had a resource center. Now that there is no resource center, we would like to see an increase in the funding.
Okay, so thank you guys for engaging, and Santa Clarita, Amanda, thank you for your comments as well. We will go ahead and close our public hearing as of 5:49, and I'll turn it back to Amber.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11C, the review and discussion and approval of resolution removing of authorized signer Jem Ross Williams on banking account for Antelope Valley Resource Center.
So the banking accounts for ASB have signer on them. And since Jem is no longer an employee, then we need to ask for that to be removed.
I motion to approve.
I second. Record that motion, but for the record, that motion was by Sarah and that second was by Shannon. Those in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstain? The ayes have it. With that said, we are going to adjourn to closed session. It is 5:50 p.m. Who's going to bring the security out? All right. Thank you, everyone. We are gonna reconvene to open session. It is 6:47. The board has, I do have something to report out. The board has unanimously decided on the dismissal of student ID 86030 as well as 86029. With that said, do we have any items for the next board meeting?
Approval of the budget and the LCAP.
Okay, the next board meeting is Thursday, June the 26th at 4 PM at the AVRC. With that said, I am adjourning tonight's meeting. It is 6:48. Thank you so much. Have a blessed night.